Hello friends and potential friends. I don't think I've ever shown you the pear tree. I don't count this as officially part of my garden because it's actually in the front yard of the house next door. But since I have control of that right now, I still get to pick the fruits off of it. And I did that the other day. This poor thing was it's been here longer than I've owned our house, over 30 years. And back in 2004, Hurricane Francis bent it over big time. Now, I put a tie down into the ground and used some ratchet straps trying to get it pulled back upright. And this is the best I could get it to do. But it keeps on growing and it keeps on producing fruit. In fact, it started a bunch of new growth down here at the bottom. And that's my reason for being out here. I'm going to clip a few of them branches off and take them to the lab and see if I can get them to root. Because this thing is much too close to the sidewalk. And once those pears start ripening, the two-legged critters start getting them. So let me get on to this and we'll pick up in a bit. Hey, and maybe I'll even show you what I got picked off of it the other day. Well, I decided to go in a slightly different direction with this video. Yes, I did take cuttings off the pear tree, and they are in the jar and water in the lab. And I'll be following up on them at some point in a future video. But I started thinking, I got a bunch of pears here and I need to do something with them because I don't want them going bad. So as much as I hate to do canning this time of year because it's entirely too hot, I need to do some canning. I've got my ball book, all my other implements of destruction. You might be able to see the pears over here in the sink. I've washed them pretty good, and I've got jars in the water bath coming up to a boil to sanitize them good. They've already been scrubbed down good with hot soapy water and rinsed real well. But I just always boil my jars just to be on the safe side. Even when I'm pressure canning, I tend to boil the jars first. I've got a light syrup that is coming up to heat here. Following the ball book, I made the light syrup with 2 1/4 cups of sugar and 5 1/4 cups of water. That should give me 6 1/2 cups of the syrup, which should be enough for 6 pints. And speaking of 6 pints, again going back to the ball book, this should give me 6 pints or 3 quarts. Needs 6 to 9 pounds of pears. They say that's about 18 to 27 medium pears. I weighed mine out before I cut them and everything. They added up to a little over 9 pounds. So that should be enough for at least 6 pints, but I've got 8 in the water bath. 1 batch of syrup for canning and some Ball Fruit Fresh Produce Protector. I don't have any of that, but I do have citric acid, so I'll be using a little bit of citric acid. That's mainly just to keep them from changing colors on me. And let's see, the next thing I need to do is process all the pears. I need to skin them and core them, and then slice them up, and eventually they're going to go into the syrup to be cooked for a little bit because these things are pretty solid. Here, let me give you an example. I don't have a fancy skinner, so I do it the old-fashioned way. Man, these things are hard. I don't know what kind of pears these are, but they definitely have to be cooked before you can can them. Otherwise, they're going to be hard as a rock. But I have found once you get them canned, when you open them back up again, they're pretty good. So there's one that's been peeled. And I'm using my heavy duty serious knife because these things are pretty solid. And I'm going to cut them into quarters. I find that makes it a little bit easier to get the cores out. And then I'll just slice through take the cores out. Now you do want to get every bit of the center section out of there because that can get pretty stringy even after they've been through the water bath. And once I get the cores out, then they'll go into this big bowl back here, which I am shortly going to fill up with water and add the citric acid to. Did I mention it's hot? About 93 outside. Feels like it's just as hot inside, to be honest. Wish my air conditioner still worked up here. And that's one done. And I'm already starting to drip. So I'm going to pause this camera and go ahead and do the rest of these pears. You don't need to watch them all being cut up. Okay, finally got all them things cut up. I got me a nice bowl of pears here, and I had to put some of them into the syrup. These are already simmering a little bit. Well, I have to heat it up just a little bit more. Take the jars out of the water, fill them up with pears. A little bit of the citric acid in each one. I think it said 1/4 of a teaspoon. And then put the lids on them and put them back in the water bath. But that's where we're at the moment. So let me see. But first I gotta wait for these pears to get softer. Basically, I've got to cook them in the syrup for about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes to soften them up a little bit. And then I get to put them in the jars. So I've got one batch in there now. And as soon as I get those in the jars, I'll add some more to the syrup. And then once I get them all cooked and in the jars, then I'll fill up the jars with the rest of the syrup. And hopefully I'll have enough. But that's the next stage of the production. And incidentally, if you can't tell, I am dripping like you wouldn't believe. It's hot in here. It's actually overcast outside. Looks like we might even get a little bit of rain. But I'm not going to count on that until it happens. So, let me cook these pears, get them in the jars, and then I'll get back with you. Okay, pears have been cooking in there for about 10 minutes. I sampled one, they're starting to soften up a little bit. So, it's time to put them in the jars. And I can tell already I'm going to have to cut them things up a little bit more. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to cut them up so I can fit more into the jars. So let me go ahead and do that a little bit, and then I'll bring you back. Okay, I managed to stuff all of them peppers into 8 pint jars. I'm shooting for a 1/2 inch of head space. I put 1/2 teaspoon of the citric acid in each jar, and now I need to add the syrup. From here on it becomes the usual drill. Fill them up to get the head space you want. Wipe the rims and put the lids and rings on them. You've seen this before, and I need both my hands, so I'm going to stop this for a second. Okay, got all the syrup in there. There we are. Make sure I got any bubbles out. Try to pack them down into the juice. It's a good thing I prepare extra jars when I do this stuff, because this was supposed to make 6 pints, and I got 8 out of it, and they almost didn't all fit. Okay, no bubbles. Now I got my vinegar water here, or vinegar and towel actually. Ouch! Well, I did it fast enough, they're still hot. Wipe all the jars good. Make sure there's no chips or cracks or any of that good stuff. And then we put a lid on each. Nope, we won't use that one. Except that I need one more. Happen to have one. Okay. Put the rings on, finger tight. One good thing about doing a hot pack, you can't hold the jar very strong, so you can't get the lids on too tight. Because if you try to, you're going to burn some fingers. Okay, move that back a little bit, and they go into the water bath. water bath. The water is about an inch over the top of the jars. So now I just need to bring this back up to boiling. Once it starts boiling, I process for 20 minutes for pints. If I was doing quarts, it would be 25 minutes. And that gives me time to clean up the rest of my mess. So, we don't want to sit here watching water boil. So I'll bring you back in a bit. Okay. Starting to get a good boil going. So we'll set the timer for 20 minutes. Put the lid on there and let her rip for about 20 minutes. That'll finish cooking the pears the rest of the way, so that when I open those jars up, they should be nice and soft and ready to be eaten. And I'll see you when that timer's about ready to go off. Just about there. Okay. Turn the heat off. And I'm going to move this off of the heat. Let it cool for about 5 minutes, and then I will take the jars out. Cleaning's never done. Oh, that should be long enough. Get it out here where I can work with it. Looks pretty good to me. Oh, I missed a spot. And just like that, we got 8 pints of pears. I'll let these sit overnight. In the morning, I'll check to see if any of them failed to seal. And I almost hope one of them didn't seal so I can eat it. But in any case, I'll see you next time.